The promise. I never thought my life would take such a turn, I never imagined myself in a situation like this. I'm Carol, a young college student, living in a beautiful house with my stepfather, Matthew, who is everything a woman could want but should never touch. It's a strange and complicated situation, but I feel like I need to tell it. Gosh, I need to get this off my chest. My mom, a widower, used to be a stunning model, met Matthew just a year ago and it was a whirlwind romance. He was a wealthy factory owner, handsome, and had this air of sensitivity that drew us both to him. She fell in love, and so did I, though in a different way. I never thought of him that way, not then. Then my mom's cancer diagnosis. It was like the end of the world. I was so terrified of what would happen to me. But Matthew was even more devastated. He truly loved her. During the last days I spent a lot of time with her and we talked about Matthew. She told me something that changed everything. She said it was my responsibility to take care of Matthew, to be there for him, to love him, it was like she was passing me a torch, a heavy one. She said I needed to take care of all of his needs, do whatever he asked of me. Of course I agreed, without really understanding at the time. I loved him too in a way, so of course I wanted to take care of his needs. My mother made a different request of Matthew, that she would be married to him before she died, so that they could be one with each other through eternity. He loved her, so he agreed. They married in the hospital, a bittersweet ceremony. My mom was so fragile, but her eyes sparkled with happiness. That was the last time I saw my mother happy. The treatment did no good and she passed quietly a few days later. I was devastated, so was Matthew. He took it so badly. I was moved into the house and made his legal ward. But in the house, he was sullen, moving around like a ghost. I tried to console him but he just ignored me. At first, we were distant, polite, trying to navigate the new reality, living in this large house together. I tried to take care of Matthew, like my mom had asked. I cooked his meals, cleaned his clothes, and read to him every night in the study next to the fireplace. I read Wuthering Heights to him. It was about forbidden love, and it turned me on more than I wanted to admit. The way Heathcliff and Catherine's love burned, it was like a secret fire that flickered in my own heart. I just didn't know why. One night while reading, I was so sleepy, I leaned my head on his shoulder, and he wrapped his arm around me. I don't remember how I dozed off, but when I woke up, his hand was caressing my back, and then, it moved to my buttocks, soft strokes. Gentle caressing over my cotton dress. I was strangely turned on and felt an immediate wetness down there. This was my stepfather, but the way his hand felt, like a man, a powerful man, it was like I was a different person. I left the room, my heart racing, and tried to shake off the feeling, but it lingered, haunting me. That night I couldn't sleep, my fingers on my breast and my secret place, thinking about his hands on me. My mind started to see him differently, replaying all my thoughts about him from the past. I recalled the first time I met him, at a dinner with my mom. I was jealous of her, he was so perfect, so handsome, so classy, and I couldn't help but feel a little possessive. But I was too young to understand. I never thought it would come to this, these thoughts. The following days, I tried my best to keep the promise to my mom, to take care of him. Trying to be the perfect stepdaughter. But one night, he was wearing a tight white button-up shirt with the first 3 buttons undone. I could see his strong chest, his chest hair, and I started to see him in a different light, his tall, well-built frame, the way his muscles rippled. I couldn't help but be attracted to him. I kept catching myself looking at his lips, his chest, his hands. I hoped he didn't notice, but I was twirling my hair and acting so girly, I was embarrassing myself. The next few days I started to wear dresses that showed more of my body. I think I did this without thinking, but my body was trying to send a message that I didn't want to send. Or did I? Looking back now, I don't know why I did the things I did. One night I sat so close to him during our reading session in the study. I let him put his arm around me and I put my hands on his chest, stroked his thigh, looked up at his big blue eyes. I noticed something I had never seen before. A big bulge in his pants. It looked like a rod trying to escape. I didn't really know what I was looking at, but it felt somehow exciting. I kept looking down at it between sentences. Then it happened. I don't know what came over me, but I put my hand on it and touched it. I squeezed it and stroked it, feeling the hardness. I immediately became so wet down there, not knowing what I was doing. He immediately stood up and bid me a good evening and told me he was heading to bed. I sat there stunned at my boldness. Who did that? Was that me that reached over and put that thing in my hand? I couldn't believe myself. I felt so ashamed. I spent the rest of the night stroking my forearm with my hand, imagining I was stroking his thing. I felt guilty, composing an apology in my head, but also enjoying the feeling of squeezing and stroking my arm, fantasizing. The next day over breakfast I apologized, telling him I had never known a man closely and didn't know what to do around men. He said he understood and not to mention it again. We went on eating and he told me we should take a road trip, to visit charming towns and try to distract ourselves from the grief. I thought it was a good idea and told him I would pack immediately. The next day we set off and I got to see a different side of Matthew. I loved being driven by him. I wrapped my arms around his free arm as he drove and I set my head on his shoulder. It was like we were any normal couple driving down the country roads. We stopped at a small town called Easton. When we arrived, people greeted him and he introduced me as his daughter. I was surprised, but he was beloved by the townspeople, especially the women, who couldn't keep their eyes off him. They adored him, and I saw why. He was handsome, sensitive, and had a presence that made everyone around him feel safe. But how did they know him? They told me a story. Matthew once owned a factory in town and paid to repair a dam that was about to give way up the river. The cost was so high that the factory closed, but it saved the town and all the houses in the valley. They said he was their hero and treated him like it. I couldn't help but compare him to the jocks at college, who were all muscle and no heart. Matthew was the complete opposite, and that made me feel things I shouldn't. We stayed in a small inn on the outskirts of town. I went to his room after cleaning up to read to him as was our custom, and we sat on the bed together against the headboard, surrounded by pillows, his arm around me, my head on his chest. I could feel his heartbeat, and it was strong, steady, and comforting. We stayed like that as I started reading. I would occasionally glance up at him and smile like a little puppy to her master. He would smile back and kiss me on the forehead. I continued reading, but then, I noticed something. Looking down, I could see the hardness growing in his pants again, and it was huge this time. I had trouble reading the words as dirty thoughts shot past my mind. I couldn't stop them, and the image of his bulge. I had a thought to touch it again, but I was so ashamed last time. But this time, he kissed my forehead again and said, "Oh sweet Carol, my innocent little angel." He kissed my cheek and then gave me a gentle kiss on the lips. I didn't shy away. The tiny kiss sent shockwaves down my insides, making me immediately wet. He continued to kiss my face and I looked up at him, accepting his affection. The book dropped from my hands and now I was embracing him on the bed. He moved one of my hands to his bulge and I started to stroke it. I don't know how I knew now to do this. I had never touched a man before, but it seemed so natural. I continued to do this as his breathing sped up. He moaned. It brought me immense joy to bring him pleasure. For some reason, my heart rejoiced in making him happy. I continued, more pressure now. He stopped me for a moment and then started to undo his pants. I waited in anticipation. He freed this large thing. It was massive, much longer and thicker than what showed under his pants. I kept staring at it, not knowing what to do. He commanded, "Continue." So I did. I gripped the top of it and started stroking it. He moaned and I was exhilarated. I had never did anything like this before and I didn't even know what I was doing. He guided my hand to go faster, to grip harder. Near the top. I complied, his breathing quickened. I kept going and then suddenly he grunted. I didn't know what was happening, but then a white liquid shot out from the tip of his thing. It hit my hands like the water from a hose. I pulled my hand down lower on the head and I could see the white liquid shoot straight up into the air, one shot after another. I was amazed. The shots slowed and the liquid oozed all over my hands. I continued stroking and he gripped my hands and guided me to shorten my strokes and I did. The liquid continued to ooze all over my hand like a volcano. There was so much of it coming out. My mother never taught me that something came out of a man when when he finished like that. I was in awe and amazement. After he calmed, he told me to bring him a towel, and I did. I gently cleaned him up, caressing his softening member. After he was clean, he held me close on the bed and kissed me on the lips, so soft, so wet, it was so loving and amazing. I melted into his arms. I felt like I was falling into oblivion. My head danced with joy as we held each other and kissed. I was so pleased with myself. I said to him, "Do I make you happy? Are you pleased with me?" He nodded his head yes, and we held each other there for an eternity before we continued reading. The next day, our relationship was changed. We were connected, closer. I couldn't help my excitement. He constantly had to push me off of him so that the locals wouldn't suspect anything. We continued our trip, and we drove to a bigger town, and there was a dress store. I tried on so many dresses, short ones, low-cut ones, silk slips, and he watched me, his eyes never leaving me. Sat there in the private dressing room, while I swung and danced for him, showing my upper leg, and I could see his arousal. I approached him, standing, him sitting, and he caressed my legs and buttocks, and I let him. I leaned over and kissed him softly on the cheek, and I got wet. I couldn't control it, and the feeling was both exhilarating and terrifying. The saleswoman was just across the curtain, and I was flirting with my stepfather. That evening, in another inn, we had separate rooms again, and I put on the white cotton, low-cut dress he had bought for me. It had thin straps and was low-cut, not really hiding anything. It was elegant and I felt so womanlike. I hoped it would please him. Then I got to his room and I read to him again, this time Tess of the D'Urberville, another story about sexual transgression. The tension in the air was palpable, and I kept reading, my voice wavering. He was hard again, and I was wet, and then, he reached over and kissed me on the lips again, but this time deeply. It was so sensual. For the first time I had someone's tongue dancing in my mouth, and it was divine. His hands were all over my body, his hand reached up my dress, caressing my buttocks under my cotton panties, then reaching inside and pressing his fingers on my wet private parts. He was spreading the wetness over my folds and stroking up and down. In between the kisses, I looked up at him and said the stupidest thing. "Matthew, do I please you like Mom did? Did you do this with her?" I don't know why I said this. It was so foolish. Matthew's expression immediately changed. It was stern, some embarrassment. Shame. He pushed me off him and told me he needed to think and for me to go to bed. I apologized profusely, begging him. "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it like that." He just turned his back to me and commanded me to leave. The moment had passed and I had ruined it. In my room, I kept slapping myself. Why did I say that? How could I be so stupid? At the same time the guilt racked into me as well. What was I doing? Doing dirty things with my stepfather, the man my mother loved. It was all so confusing and crazy. I stirred all night in the bed and barely slept. The next day, Matthew was curt, almost cold. I apologized again, but he didn't respond at all. He said we were headed home and we drove in silence. When we got back home, things were awkward, but I couldn't stop thinking about him. I loved him, but the taboo of it all was driving me crazy. I felt guilty, but I couldn't shake the desire. Then days passed by and I didn't see him. He was away on business and I was going stir crazy. I looked through all of his photos, some of Matthew and my mom, and the guilt stabbed me in the heart. I had ruined everything. When he returned a few days later, I apologized to him again as soon as I saw him, and he was softer. He hugged me and held me and stroked my hair. The next few days were almost normal. We were laughing again and we were connecting again, him treating me like his beloved daughter. He brought me a music box from out of town and I listened to it 1,000 times. Over dinner we would joke around and at night he would kiss me on the forehead again. I would hug him and he hugged me back. I would look up at him with my puppy eyes and he would look down at me and smile. He kissed me on the cheek and told me good night. I felt whole again, but that last kiss sent a jolt of excitement back down my insides. Like before. The same evening, I couldn't stop thinking about him and I wanted to see him. I grabbed a book and I thought I would make the excuse of reading to him again and go to his bedroom. I put on my white cotton nightgown, sleeveless with lace neckline and pink roses. I walked down the hallway and knocked on his door, but there was no answer. I opened the door and peeked inside. He wasn't in the room, but then I saw the bathroom door was open with steam coming out. I don't know what came over me, but I wanted to see him. I walked over, my hands trembling. I peered into the bathroom and I saw him in the glass shower. He was naked, hot water beating down his chest and I could see it. His long thing. I couldn't take my eyes off of it. I felt so ashamed I started to run out of the room, but before I closed the door, I thought, it would not be strange to wait for him and tell him I wanted to read to him. So I sat on his bed waiting with anticipation. A few minutes later he came out, towel around his waist. "Carol? What are you doing?" he inquired. "Oh, well. I miss reading to you. I have this new book, do you want to read it together?" He looked at me for a moment, a long moment, then he said, "All right," and approached the bed. He arranged the pillows so that we can sit together against the headboard like we did before. He sat down in only his towel. My heart was beating out of my chest and I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled as I opened the book and started reading. I gasped slightly when he wrapped his arm around my shoulder and drew me close. And again, we were back in our comfortable place, our bodies against each other, me reading. He kissed my head and stroked my arm as we read. I moved my body closer. And then I saw it, slow throbbing under his towel. Every few seconds it would move. I was trying to keep my eyes on the words, but my mind was only on what was under there, his big thing. It grew larger and larger until it was fully stiff and I could see skin peeking through the opening of the towel. I was getting soaking wet with the image and he reached over and kissed me on the mouth, deeply, possessively. It was more assertive now. More hungry. I dropped the book and I wrapped my arms around him. His hands were already up my thigh and to my buttocks, under my panties. He positioned himself over me and I could feel his hard thing pressed against my wet panties. The towel fell off and I could feel his hot skin, his hands now reaching behind my buttocks to my wet petals, spreading the wetness. I was swimming with crazy thoughts. I wanted him to take me, and again my mouth said something. "Matthew, I just want to make you happy. That's all I want, for you to be happy." He kissed me even more deeply. I was soaking wet now. He pushed up above me and then pulled down my panties off my legs. Then he pulled my nightgown over my head and now I was completely naked for the first time in front of a man. He moved over my body and spread my legs and positioned himself between them. I could feel his hardness pressing up against my wetness. As we kissed and caressed, the head of the stiffness kept breaching my entrance briefly. I would gasp with pain and he would pull out, then again and again. Slowly he would advance further each time. The pain was sharp but I held back my screams. I didn't want to disappoint him. I wanted him to do what he pleased. He let me adjust to his size, and now it was inside me, filling me. He moved further inside. I felt like I was going to tear apart. I bit my tongue, preventing the screams. Tears were rolling down my eyes, but he continued, advancing deeper into me. Then he hit my limit. I was completely filled. Then his mouth went to my neck and the tickling sensation drove me mad, and he pulled out, then thrust slowly in again. Over and over, the slickness was allowing him to move with impunity. He propped himself up with his arms and he looked down at my tear-filled face. He thrust in to see my wincing, and again, the rhythm faster now. I was feeling the friction but the pain was still immense. He continued faster and faster. I was screeching now, then he tensed up and grunted. He exploded inside of me, deep inside, depositing his seed. There were convulsions of his body as he did this. The slickness was immense and I could feel it. He continued to stroke inside me as he dropped down to kiss me. So wet, so passionate. His movements slowed and he slumped over me and I could feel his full weight on me. I wrapped my arms and legs around him, bringing him as close as possible to me, his thing still inside. His breathing was heavy against my ear and I said, "I love you, Matthew. I love you so much." He lifted his head up and kissed me, then whispered into my mouth, "I love you too." My heart was spinning with joy. I held him close again. I whispered into his ear, "I only want to please you. I want to make you happy, just tell me how and I will do it." It was the most loved I ever felt. The most safe, the most intense experience of my life thus far. We fell asleep in each other's arms that night and slept way past sunrise. Everything changed after that night. He had taken my innocence and I wanted only him to have it. I really started to take the role of my mother, fulfilling his every desire, and even more than that. I was taking care of him, worshipping him. I found myself entering his room each morning, making sure I pleasured him with my mouth. He taught me how to do this. The way he liked, how to keep him clean by swallowing all the white liquid. I made sure that not a drop hit the sheets. Then after he would come home from the factory, he would be agitated, so I would put on a silk slip and dance for him, and I would let him touch me wherever he wanted to. He would sometimes take me right there in the kitchen, from behind, ravaging me like a rag doll. I would cook for him, fold his clothes, and even fulfill desires he didn't know he had. One day as we're walking along the boardwalk we saw a stunning lady of the night, flaunting her breasts in a low-cut dress. I saw him stare for too long and I had an idea. I later went back and found her. One evening I surprised him by presenting him with her. I told her we all could bathe together. He was reluctant, but once we were in the shower together, well, he enjoyed it. He enjoyed watching me and her soap each other, kissing each other, caressing each other's breasts, and then he lined us both up against the tile, our hands pasted to the walls, and then he would enter us from behind, one at a time switching between us. Then we both knelt down and allowed him to finish in our mouths, both lapping up his seed as if it were honey. I would kiss her deeply and exchange his flavor with her, swallowing the rest. It was a journey into darkness but utter love mixed with pleasure. I finally started to realize what my mother wanted me to do. She wanted me to take care of all his needs. No matter what, to be his everything, to give this man, this good man, the life he deserved, to give him the woman he deserved, and I was doing everything I could to fulfill this promise. And I will never stop.